Hello everyone, this is Ron from High Tech Legion, and this is part of our review of the ASUS F1A75-M Pro motherboard. And this is the EFI BIOS utility as included in the ASUS motherboard. And it should look familiar if you've seen our previous reviews of other ASUS motherboards, but there are some slight differences depending on the CPU type. We've reviewed the ROG boards before and some of their Intel boards. Now this is the FM1 socket from AMD, and let's go through some of the features. And first, this is actually the simple interface, the basic one. If you've initially booted, you'll see this information. You have the temperature information and voltages, as well as fan speeds, and you have these presets here for power saving. The default, of course, is normal, and for ASUS optimal settings. And right underneath, you have quick boot options if you have multiple drives installed. I just placed in my test drive here, so it only has a single drive in there. But if you have, say, a optical drive and you want to boot that first, if you want to install an operating system, you can just simply override it through here with a single click. And there's also information there, a date and time, and your the motherboard build date, and a quick overview of your specifications, like whether your CPU, for example, is showing that we have the AMD ASUS 3650 APU installed, and our memory is currently running at 1333 megahertz. And right underneath, you have a boot menu, and you can quickly hit the default settings here with pressing F5, while the boot menu is F8. And we're actually going to go through the advanced mode here. It's the same one as the exit button right in the upper right hand corner. Also, before I forget, that you can see that the ASUS EFI BIOS utility comes in multiple languages. So even if your English is not your first language, or you're French or German, you can or Chinese, you can quickly drop this down and apply it to whatever you wish to use. So let's go to the advanced mode, hit that, and you will see this window right here. So whether you want to save the changes you've done in this window, or just and exit, or you can go through advanced mode, which we are going to do. And here we have a lot more options than previous. You can see the main windows. This a little bit more familiar. It looks like the old BIOS that we have seen before, but now since this is an EFI extendable firmware interface, we can use a mouse, much easier to navigate it. And also ASUS made it so that the layout is simple and easy to use and easy to access. In this page, basically, you can change your date and time and security level, and of course the system language, like we have seen in that previous simple page. Here you can set your administrator password under security button right underneath. And the next tab is the AI tweaker tab. Now this is where you will do most of your overclocking. Basically, we have here is a ASUS 3650 APU, and you can see that the default, it has set in a default CPU speed, and our DRAM speed is at 1333, which is a default for the pair of 2 GB models I have. And let me show you what I did to reach the overclock. And first option for the AI tweaker is the auto, manual, or DOCP. If you're going to overclock, you would set it to manual, of course, manual setting. But let me show you what this DOCP means. It is basically, since if you're familiar with the Intel systems, Intel has something called the XMP profile, which allows you to load the memory modules come with embedded profiles for your overclocked speeds, and they're not that are supported. And the DOCP is a exclusive feature that ASUS placed in these motherboards that allows it to read that information and tweak the system depending on that. So you can see it adjusted automatically the memory frequency to 1600 megahertz from the default 1333, and you can see the DRAM OC profiles loaded, and it can read multiple profiles. See there, depending on so the voltage, and the also has several preset voltages, but this is the one it read right underneath. The voltage that the manufacturer of the DRAM has specified in the XMP profile. See the timing there, 99924 2N and 1.5 volts. So that's very It's a very cool feature to have. That's unique in ASUS motherboards. And the next option, let's just go back to manual and see the next option is APU frequency, where you can adjust from 90 megahertz to 300 megahertz. And the memory frequency is basically a memory divider. You can see your option there. Leave it on auto, which is default, or change it manually. Let's try 1600 megahertz. Here you have the APU multiplier and the EPU power saving mode. The default is disabled, but you can enable it. You've seen in the main window, there's a quick option there. It gives you a quick option. See if you enable. See what the EPU settings come up. Once you enable it, you can you have several options. You can leave it on auto, light, medium, or max power saving. Let's leave it to disabled for now. And the next is the OC tuner. Now OC tuner is actually an automatic overclocking for your for ASUS motherboards. And basically, once you press OK, it will do that automatic overclocking. So I won't hit cancel for now. We can continue looking at the other features. Here you can control individual DRAM timings. You can see that it's convenient because it reads has the recommended values right here on the left, and you can adjust it each one down here all the way. Even then, let me check if the voltages are all okay. It doesn't show the voltages, but it has plenty of settings for adjusting the timings. The voltages are probably lumped right underneath. Here we have the CPU voltage. This is right now it's in offset mode, and basically you can change either the offset is to compensate higher or lower, plus or minus sign. And here you can adjust the offset voltage. Maximum is 0.5 volts, and that's very big. Make sure you know what you're doing when you do this, so you don't fry your CPU. Although ASUS won't really allow you to. It has lots of safety features when overclocking, so you really don't have to worry. You will see it later if, for example, here's the next one is the VDD and B voltage. You have the same features. You have the offset and the voltage you can adjust here. If you just start typing, let me show you how to input a value here. For example, here on the DRAM voltage is 1.5 is the default, which is actually what the default manufacturer specified. Even in the XMP profile of our modules are, but I'm going to try. Let me hit the +1 and let me crank it up. Let me show what happens once you reach beyond the specified. The max here says 2.3, but this is what ASUS is recommending. See, once it turns 1.58, you can still run it, but yellow is basically a warning. And let's try to go over and see if it. There you go. It turns red. Of course, not recommended, and you just leave it. And let's bring it back down again to the default. And you have the SAT 1.1 volts. You have VSB, APU, and VDDA voltage. Several other features there. And here, some other features that will come in handy when you're overclocking. The DIGI plus VRM controls. You have CPU load line calibration. You have auto, regular, medium, high, ultra high, and extreme. So there's plenty of options there. The higher the value, you could get higher voltage and good overclocking performance, but increase the CPU and VRM temperatures. So make sure you have adequate cooling. Even though the A6 3650 APU is actually runs very cool, it doesn't require too much cooling. So shouldn't really you could actually have fun with this overclocking. You don't have to worry. What you have to actually with in terms of temperature, but you have to look at is actually where it's stale when you overclock. Is that you have to, since the APU, the graphics rather, is embedded into the APU chip. That's what you have to find the balance when you're overclocking. You have to find the balance between the voltage, whether you're giving voltage to the CPU or to the graphics. And you see some of the other options here. You see the options for adjusting the CPU voltages and the CPU current, what you're giving it. You have the CPU phase control here, standard, optimized, extreme, and you have CPU voltage frequency and VRM spread spectrum. Right underneath, you can choose the APU spread spectrum. You have enabled, disabled, or enabled. Enabled. And the CPU power duty control. Here you have T-probe or extreme. And we'll go back to that later. I'm going to show you the these maximum overclock I've achieved. Alright, here's the next tab, the Advanced tab. Here you have several nested options. First is the CPU configuration. So you can enable or disable limit the CPU ID maximum. You have your C6 mode, CPV mode, and AMD Power Now function, as well as SVM. You have it for virtualization. And next is the SATA configuration. You can change the SATA channel. You can disable it completely or change the SATA type. You have IDE, RAID, and HCI. Of course, if you want to change each one, you have gives you different options. Here's the IDE option. You change speed to SATA 6 or SATA 3. The RAID option gives you the option of changing the SATA, the port 5 and 6 to IDE or RAID. And of course, the maximum speed, either lower it to SATA 3 or SATA 6. And let's go back to AHCI mode. Here you can leave port 5 and 6 as IDE as well. So then leave the rest as AHCI, and also limit your SATA 6 speeds. And let's just put it back to IDE default. And here's the smart status check. You can enable or disable it. Here at the bottom you can see what the SATA population is. Here we only have one hard drive installed currently, so it's reading that. And next is the USB configuration. Here you can have the legacy USB support, enable or disable. USB 3.0 legacy support, and these are the default values are enabled. AHCI hands off, which is a workaround for OSs without the AHCI support. You can enable or disable it. And here's a mass storage device, Patriot memory PMAP. It's been reading it right now. Here I think I have a USB drive plugged in to one of the USB ports. It's actually reading that, and you can have it act as a floppy, force FDD, hard disk, or CD-ROM. And the NB configuration, I've already said APU. It is built into the CPU package within the CPU package, so it's just in there. And here you can adjust your multi-graphics monitor. You can see this is not a default value. These are, I have enabled it. This is actually for enabling the dual graphics, or if you're familiar with the former ATI technologies, the hybrid SLI, or hybrid crossfire, what they called it, is basically running your integrated graphics with a discrete GPU to increase the performance. This is what the setting I have for that. The default is actually disabled, and as you can see, once I disable it, the primary video device can be selected, either the internal graphics video or the PCI discrete video. And for integrated graphics, you can leave it on auto or force it completely to work. And you have since in the back you have DVI or HDMI port output. You have auto, HDMI, and DVI. Now I leave it to DVI because sometimes I would lose if I boot on a cold boot. It would not detect the DVI output, so I make sure to leave it on DVI. I don't have anything plugged in HDMI. If I leave it on auto, sometimes I have to replug it in and reset the system to be able to get a signal. And the next is the onboard device configuration. Here you have the HD audio, front panel, SPDIF. You can adjust each one, whether you want to output it to HDMI or just plain SPDIF. And here you have the front panel type, where you have plug-in HD audio or AC97. And you're able or disable HD audio device. Also here you have your Realtek LAN control and optional ROM or Realtek PSE. And these are all the default values. And you have the Asmedia USB 3.0 controller. If you remember the overview, there was a pair extra USB 3.0 controls, and the Asmedia USB controller is controlling both of those extra ports, USB 3.0 ports. Here you can enable the battery charging support, which is actually, if you have say an iPad or a tablet or a phone, you want to more efficient charging. Saves us a lot of time. You can enable this feature right here, and right underneath we have a nested option for the serial port configuration. You enable or disable it, or leave it on auto, or assign IRQ settings specifically. Let's go back, and the final one is the APM for power management. Automatic power management. You have these are the default values. The restore easy power loss is power off is the default value. So you have the option here to restore through power on or last state, and you have your power PME, power on by ring, or power on by RTC. And the next tab is the monitor tab, which shows you the CPU temperature, motherboard temperature, CPU fan speed, chassis fan speed, and here you can also control the fans. Now there's another unique ASUS features. You can control your fan here, the Q fan. You can actually manually control it. This is a very nice feature to have because, for example, I have the Cooler Master V6 GT. I didn't use it for this one, but I have that heatsink, and the fans can spin up to 2000 RPM, so it's very loud. So sometimes I just want to set instead of using just a smart fan or just guessing the RPM, I just want to do the duty cycle. I just want to be able to adjust it. Now ASUS gives you that option on this motherboard through this EFI BIOS utility. As you can see, you can see the fan profile. You can set whether the upper temperature and adjust the fan max duty cycle and adjust the fan min duty cycle, as well as the lower CPU chassis temperature. And this is true not just for the CPU, but also for the chassis control as well. See there? See what I have. These are actually the standard values. Let's go to one by one. See if I enable the CPU Q fan control. So you can set the CPU fan speed low limit there. You can set ignore or up to 200 RPM, and you have a CPU fan profile, silent, turbo, and manual, which we have previously looked at already. There you go. And underneath you have the CPU voltages, 3.3 and 5 volt and 12 volt voltage, as well as the anti-surge support. And the second to last tab is the boot tab right here. You can enable these are all the default values. You have the numlock boot state, on full screen logo enabled, wait for F1 if error enabled, optional ROM messages, you have force BIOS, and setup mode, easy mode. Now you can set it so that whenever you enter the BIOS, it immediately goes into advanced mode rather than the easy mode that we looked at, that simple interface, single page EFI interface. And now you have your boot option priorities. Since you only have one hard drive in there, you have no other option but that. But here you can also quickly boot override. The same if previously look at the easy mode page, you have a large icon of a hard drive there. If you have multiple drives, well, multiple drives there and a CD-ROM drive, we'll show it there as well. You can just simply click that and it will boot automatically. Same thing here. I have a USB plugged in, although there's no operating system there, so it won't really boot, and a hard drive, which we have our operating system. You guys quickly click on that, it will automatically, that's why I'm not going to touch it, because it will automatically try to boot that drive. Here's the hard drive BBS profiles right underneath, and you can change the priority for the drives that are being detected. Now the last part is the tools. You have the ASUS Easy Flash utility for quickly flashing your BIOS. You want to leave flash 2, okay. Basically a mini program inside. You have the ASUS. Let's go through the SPD information first, and see it detects the modules that are inside, that are installed. I have a pair of Corsair Vengeance 2 GB DDR3 there, and you can see that the XMP profile can reach up to 1600 MHz, and you have the timings listed in there, and you can actually select which of the DIMM slot to read. See, the DIMM B1 bank is not populated, so it's not detecting anything. So let's go back, and this is the ASUS OC profile. Like I said earlier, I'm going to show you what the overclock I have achieved with the ASUS F1A75-M Pro motherboard was with the A6 3650 APU. Here I have a profile loaded in the first bank. Yeah, up to 8 banks there for status. Let me just load it. Basically, just select which number you want to save the profile there, and hit enter to save. And the same thing with load. I have 1, and just hit load from profile. Here we are in the AI tweaker with our overclock profile loaded. Here's my I have achieved 137 multiplier with the APU frequency. Now the multiplier is actually locked for the AMD hasn't released their unlocked chips yet. So basically, when you overclock, you have to adjust the APU frequency. The default is 100, of course, and I've mentioned overclock to 137. Now to do that, that means everything has to be, since we're adjusting the APU frequency, everything is basically overclocked. Your graphics, your RAM, since we didn't just adjust the multiplier, and with the frequency set to 137, I have our memory frequency. I had to choose a lower frequency just for stability instead of going over 1826. I'm sure my RAM can probably handle that, but just for safety, I did 1461. And for the power saving, of course, I had disabled most of the power saving features first for help with the stability as well. And just go quickly to the CPU configuration. See, I've disabled the C6 and the power now function, and what AI tweaker. And what helps with the overclock is that I didn't immediately adjust the voltage, CPU voltage. I left it in auto for now, but I actually to get a very stable CPU, I had to bump it to 1.5 volts. But initially, what I did was I set the load line calibration to high, and CPU and load line calibration to high. Make sure that I'm really pushing the phase control. I have set it to extreme. I have the CPU voltage to auto. I left it at auto. CPU power GPU control to extreme, and the APU spread spectrum left to auto. And I have this is what I've adjusted the APU 1.2 voltage. I have bumped it from 1.2 volt to 1.25, and what you want to do is you want to jump to something like 1.28, and then try if it works. Try to dial it down by 0.01 until you reach a stable enough that you don't you can run your benchmark. For example, the 3D Mark 11 combined test would be very good for detecting that. Although of course that's with the APU overclock. But sometimes some CPU intensive programs, when you run the benchmark, the voltage, the 1.412, or leaving the voltage to auto, is not enough. You need to set offset mode. So what I did was I set to 1.5. It can handle up to 1.55 volt, as you can see there. So I had no problem with that. And as usual, I think I mentioned earlier, there was no problem with the thermal. It didn't shut down. The system did not shut down at all during benchmark, and the heatsink was never even hot to the touch. This is a new 32 nanometer manufacturing, and it's really processors are really getting smaller and cooler. Eventually, we'll see even better technologies. So that's very exciting, and that's pretty much it. And let me just show you, see any other features we've overlooked. You can actually, to reset one, here's the last page here. You can load optimize defaults. Or disable, go back to easy mode again, or just discard your changes that you have done and reset your system. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching, and go back to reading the rest of the review. Thank you.